Hello, everyone. We're in episode 130. It's an episode about marriage. It so happens this is airing on my 26th wedding anniversary. So I just had a few things to share. Marriage has been, especially I would say the last few years, something I've really climbed in to actually understand on the very, very deepest levels. A lot of you know that Jeff and I almost divorced. We were separated 10 months, got back together right before COVID fully hit. So we reunited in April of 2020. So we've had this whole year to just heal and get a lot of support. You know, the same things you fight about over and over for years and years and years. We just weren't okay with that anymore. We wanted to understand the inner workings of our own selves first and how we are getting triggered by each other's patterns. I'm reading a really great book called Radical Awakening by Dr. Shefali. It's Shefali Sayberry. She wrote The Conscious Parent and The Awakened Family. I love everything she puts out there, but she talked about how people are patterns. People aren't people, people are patterns. And I think where that comes alive for a lot of us who've been married for a while, even those who are just barely getting to know each other as partners, you're going to find at some point that you're bumping up against each other's patterns. Even if you love each other so much, the patterns you've each inherited through your environments and programming and conditioning and your own perspectives on the world, they rear their ugly heads for good or ill as you start to mature as a couple. And a lot of people see those as very deleterious, something to be avoided, like, oh, we're just incompatible, or we have irreconcilable differences, or what have you. And what Jeff and I noticed was we wanted to really climb in and see what was creating these patterns within ourselves. We still are. It's still a process, of course. But having been married now 26 years, we can see that it has most of our marital issues have been about patterns. So I also want to say here that for those of you who are divorced or separated, this episode is not about, oh, here's how to reconcile, or here's how to do this or that, or putting judgment around getting divorced, because we were literally so close to getting divorced. And, in a parallel universe, we talk about this a lot, like we could have been. It was needful for us to separate, for us to just have some space around what we really wanted and how we were going to come together in healthier ways and what we needed to work on personally. So it was quite traumatic on both of us, actually, and on our family of 5 children. That said, so just those of you who are struggling in your relationship or who are divorced and still have some pain and trauma around things not being wrapped up, not having closure, or just generally feeling like maybe you don't even know if you should stay in your relationship or not, I want you to know there's not always a very clear-cut, clean, one-size-fits-all, and I know you know this. I just have a higher way of looking at relationships now, I guess, and part of it was just coming to terms with, I think it was something Eckhart Tolle said. He said that when we come to realize that our relationships are here to make us conscious, not happy, that was a huge paradigm shift for me, because I was like, it really isn't this relationship's job or my marriage's job to make me feel happy. That whole happily ever after kind of mentality, or you complete me, or all of those things. Consciousness is a whole other thing than happiness. Sometimes consciousness means waking up to the trauma you carry. Sometimes consciousness means expansion and busting out of your old conditioning that you thought was the key to happiness. And sometimes it's completely different than you anticipated. So I like that concept of our relationships are here to make us conscious, not just happy. Marion Woodman is one of the wise teachers I often refer to. She's passed away, but she has written so many amazing books. And she's a Jungian psychologist and a feminist scholar. And she writes in one of her books about how she was married 3 times to the same man. And I love that because I think every relationship, every marriage especially, kind of goes through these 3 or 4 phases where you literally die, like the relationship dies. It sheds its old skin so it can be reborn in a different form. And when you're bumping up against those patterns, they have to die, which means you're divorcing that part of yourself. One of the main qualifiers for whether or not you should stay in a relationship is if that partner has willingness to look at how they're not showing up in conscious ways. Not willingness just to please you or willingness just to even, okay, well, if you think I should do that, but they genuinely have the desire to become more conscious. That's a huge qualifier when you're trying to decide whether or not the relationship has run its course. So if there's desire and willingness, then you have something to work with. And we see this a lot with the traits of narcissism. When a partner doesn't have willingness to look at their stuff, dive into their shadow work, which is so hard and painful for all of us. But if they continue to project and blame, it's really difficult to come to a middle space where you can actually heal the relationship. If that person wants you to grow to your fullest self, that's another qualifier. They want you to expand into who you really are. They're not holding you back from the full expression of who you are. They're encouraging you to grow to your fullest potential. If you don't feel that from your partner, if you don't feel that encouragement, or you're feeling like they're tethering you to stay a certain way or to not grow and expand, then that is time to re-examine, because you're going to keep feeling smaller. I love what Richard Rohr says. He says, true love is a death of the false self. And that's why relationships don't work, because you have to let go of who you thought you were before you can truly love that person at a very conscious level. Giving yourself over to another person is healthy if that person is growing, right? If that person is growing and that person has a desire to stay conscious, then it's safe. It feels safer. And you can't create safety in the relationship if both parties aren't willing to grow. If you don't give your partner power to change you, I don't think you can love them. Your soul knows that. Now, what he's saying there is not like giving your power away or, giving power over yourself to another person. It's the power to change you, to open your eyes to your own patterns, because they're only ever just mirroring your patterns back to you. Your old normal is always dying. He said you don't go there by choice. This naturally happens when you're trying to progress and expand and evolve. You're going to have tragedies, you're going to have all things happen. But if you don't transform your suffering, you will transmit it. I'm going to say that again. If you don't transform your suffering, you'll transmit it. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, with respect to kind of some power struggles that you can have in a marital relationship. I will say Jeff is definitely the more easygoing partner. I just can't even express how grateful I've been for his patience with me and his support. That is the one thing that he really, really shines at: support. So if I have an idea, he listens to that idea. He supports me as I implement it, as I innovate. He helps me innovate my own ideas. And that's an area that I need to grow in for him. He's held down the fort as I've traipsed all over the world and started a podcast and started a business, an international business, and everything from doing beauty pageants when we were first married and had young kids to, you name it. When I was listening to the Oprah podcast, or when she and Richard were talking about how, that qualifier of, you're with the right person is if they encourage your evolvement or they encourage your growth and expansion. I think that's one of the healthiest aspects of mine and Jeff's relationship. And I'm really, really grateful for that. But we do power struggle, he and I. We have this, we don't fight a lot, but it's almost like when we do, it's always about a power differential, a power dynamic. We both know it's a pattern, some ingrained pattern that we've both internalized that really isn't about us or each other, but it's about something that we're here to heal. You don't always attract the person into your space who is going to make you feel so amazing and love you so much. You attract the person into your space that's going to help you grow and to help your soul evolve in the highest way. And that was another eye-opener for me in terms of, reconciling with Jeff, almost divorcing. Literally, you guys, we were a hair's breadth from signing the divorce papers. It was lawyers, everything. We were so, so close. But ultimately, it came back to, we really want to make this work. We really want not to just do this for our family and our kids, but for ourselves and each other, because we truly loved each other. But back to the power struggle thing. It came down to that we were both just afraid to feel feel certain things, I should say. And it was the cost of not allowing ourselves to feel certain things. So it's like holding up the mirror. Everything is a reflection of how you feel about yourself. Literally everything. And this new awakening, it's all about you. Like, success is directly related to the level of discomfort you're willing to go to. And the only time you're really growing is when you're uncomfortable. So sometimes people experience that discomfort and they go, oh, well, this relationship's not right for me. I will give this caveat. If that person is hurting you intentionally, if they are gaslighting you, if they are abusive in any way, if they are verbally tearing you down, I'm not talking about that. That's a whole other level of like turn and run and find ways to take yourself out of that situation because it's not safe. What I'm talking about here is the importance of surrendering, emptying yourself, allowing your partner to be that walking mirror and a reflection of what's triggering unhealed parts of you. And that is a humbling process because we're only ever really getting triggered by someone because of a pattern that's inside of us that's unhealed. There is this beautiful analogy I heard, or quote I heard somewhere, about the usefulness of a cup is in its emptiness. It's about that feminine energy and essence of receiving, being open-hearted, being open-minded, ready to be filled with, the fruits of the spirit, really. That's what heals relationship. And when we have that intention, we can have a higher intuition because intention fuels intuition. So when we stay open to receiving in our healthy feminine, we actually are being love, not looking for love or not waiting for love. We are open to who we already are. And that filling that happens, you can ask for that. You can go within and breathe and just ask for that to be filled in your sacred need when you're so overwhelmed in a relationship that you don't understand it's because it's all happening in you. It really has very little to do with that other person. And there's a lot of blaming and projecting that could go back and forth. So when we are that empty cup, we go into emptiness, surrender, not knowing, not having to be right, not having to have the answer, not feeling it is our job to tell our spouse where they're going wrong. One of the things I've been trying to do as a spiritual practice, besides stay present, is that every time I'm getting triggered by another person, I almost force myself to ask, what is it about that behavior that I'm also doing? How do I show up like that? How do I do this too? When we're talking about being love, being the essence of love, it's not for our partner, it's for ourselves. And this ultimately helps us navigate, of course, the relationship to express love. But it starts with healing past trauma and examining how you actually feel about marriage, how you feel about the opposite sex, in our case, men, if your partner is the opposite sex, how you feel about your role as a spouse. I know I had some beliefs about being a wife that were programmed very, very young from church, from society, that were not serving me and were making me feel super guilty that I didn't have certain traits that I thought a good wife should have. Ultimately, when it came down to it, those were not traits that my husband wanted me to have anyway. It was just an expectation I was putting on myself. But we all carry these beliefs about marriage, about the opposite sex, about our roles. It comes down to how we actually feel about ourselves. So the relationship that you have with yourself is your first marriage relationship to nurture. The relationship or the marriage between your body and your soul. There's a lot of metaphors in the scriptures about that kind of a marriage between like the beloved and the bridegroom and Christ and the bridegroom and all. There's a lot of marriage metaphors, and really it's just about integrating and managing your masculine and feminine energy states. How do you show up to receive? That's your feminine. How do you absorb information? How do you maintain inclusivity? How do you foster your intuition? How do you come within? And then your masculine energy is all about what you do with that. How do you manage enlightened action? How do you move to action? How do you manifest? How do you implement? That balance between the expression of your outward self and the management of all the inner work that you're doing to fill yourself up before you open your mouth, let's just say, or before you try to do anything with intimacy. Anything that you do on the outside is largely a result of how you've managed your inner life. Who you were in the past created your current home. Who you were in the past created your current relationships, your body, your environment. So it's all a reflection of that. And we just get into this blame thing, and that doesn't absolve them. We know that our partner is imperfect, right? We're not absolving them of their weaknesses and how they're projecting and blaming too. But we're just taking this radical accountability for what's been created to this point. And for me, it was taking the charge out of the judgment around it. Like, I had this expectation of what I thought marriage was supposed to be. What I found is that I had a really beautiful, comfortable, solid, intimate connection with my husband, and that all of the most important elements were there. And everything else just was kind of like icing on the cake, or even fluff, you could say, but the most important elements were intact. And that's where it gets exciting, because then you do have that safety. And when you hold radical self-accountability, it means that you can create your future reality, all of it. There's 4 stages to a marriage that I learned. The first stage is about romance. It's kind of where you have a little bit of blinders on. You have such an optimistic, rosy view of all of those beliefs I just talked about. It's the romantic, it's the honeymoon stage, and that can last a long time or a short time. And people can go back and forth in it. The second one is disillusionment. Like, what did I do? What is going on here? I don't know this person. And what we're really saying we don't know that person is we're saying we don't know ourselves a lot of the time. So as we are maturing, we can't help but shake up the relationship, because we're changing, we're shedding our old skin. So romance is the first stage. The second stage is disillusionment. The third stage is misery. Now, this was really validating for me, to know that healthy relationships go through a miserable stage. These are not linear. You can pop in and out of these all of the time. But it's the fourth stage, awakening. For me, my admiration, respect, reverence, awe, whatever, for the institution of marriage deepened, because I recognized that, again, it wasn't Jeff's job to do anything for me. And it really wasn't my job to do anything for him. At the deepest levels, we're just guiding each other and supporting and holding space for each other to be the fullest expression of ourselves. And that doesn't mean, I'm not saying like don't serve them and don't put them first and all. I'm not saying that. Those elements are very, very important. But the sustainability and the deepening of the marriage comes about by that stage of awakening. So after you crash a little bit from the romance into the disillusionment, like the wilderness of, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. I don't know. I've even said to my husband, I don't know if I'm wife material. It's nothing against you. I just don't know that I'm great wife material. I have feminist leanings. I'm super driven. I'm very opinionated. I love to work. I love to travel by myself. Like, there's elements to me. Those were things he was attracted to. But when I was in my shadow side of those things, that's when it became polarizing. But it was me judging myself and thinking that I was failing because I'm not the typical I've had that element to me that I needed to have a broader horizon, or I needed to be given wings to experience more. And that's one of the beautiful things about the gift that God gave me in the form of Jeff. Women and men, studies have shown that confidence and self-acceptance in their partner, it was the most attractive thing to them. I remember when going through marriage retreats, and one time we did a 9-hour straight marriage therapy session. And it was a lot. And this person that was holding space for us was phenomenal. He was not a traditional marriage therapist. But at one point we were just going back and forth. And either of us, we weren't really getting anywhere. And he was just kind of sitting there listening to us. And all of a sudden he said, do you both know the minute that a relationship changes and a marriage changes? The minute a marriage changes is when one person stands up and says, it's me. It's all me. And we both just kind of looked at each other like, are we willing to do that? And bless my husband's heart, he has done that. He has done the work with that. It's not easy for him. It's not easy for me. But he swung rapidly into the space of, it's me, even though we both know it's not just him. But he took that ownership. And I love that. Men and women both deeply, deeply crave emotional connection. And some people think that women crave it more than men, but that's just not true. They both deeply crave that. I wanted to read this beautiful poem by Khalil Gibran called On Love. Then said El Mitra, "Speak to us of love." And he raised his hand and looked upon the people, and there fell a stillness upon them. And with a great voice he said, "When love beckons to you, follow him, though his ways are hard and steep. And when his wings enfold you, yield to him, though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you. And when he speaks to you, believe in him, though his voice may shatter your dreams as the north wind lays waste the garden. For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so is he for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. Like sheaves of corn, he gathers you into himself. He threshes you to make you naked. He sifts you to free you from your husks. He grinds you to whiteness. He kneads you until you are pliant. And then he assigns you to his sacred fire, that you may become sacred bread for God's sacred feast. All these things shall love do unto you, that you may know the secrets of your heart, and in that knowledge become a fragment of life's heart. But if in your fear you would seek only love's peace and love's pleasure, then it is better for you that you cover your nakedness and pass out of love's threshing floor into the seasonless world, where you shall laugh, but not all of your laughter, and weep, but not all of your tears. Love gives not but itself, and takes not but from itself. Love possesses not, nor would it be possessed, for love is sufficient unto love. When you love, you should not say, God is in my heart, but rather, I am in the heart of God. And think not you can direct the course of love, for love, if it finds you worthy, directs your course. Love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. But if you love and must needs have desires, let these be your desires, to melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night, to know the pain of too much tenderness, to be wounded by your own understanding of love, and to bleed willingly and joyfully, to wake at dawn like a winged heart and give thanks for another day of loving, to rest at the noon hour and meditate love's ecstasy, to return home at eventide with gratitude, and then to sleep with a prayer for the beloved in your heart and a song of praise upon your lips. Now, I know that that really isn't a poem necessarily about marriage. It's more like about union with the beloved, or a partnership with the divine, and understanding how love courses into us and through us through that connection. But I think we could also draw it into an exterior partnership, but also the partnership with our divine selves. It really is just an act of surrender. Surrendering into the openness and expansion of what is there for you to receive, to learn, to look at your patterns, to look at the things that aren't easy, to fail and get messy and get loud and do it wrong, and then to come back and say, this is what I do know. I don't know a lot of things for sure, but I do know that I have love in my heart. I do know that it's there. And it's about taking that and working with whatever little light and glimmer is there, learning to open yourself to more of it and focus on it and let it expand within you. And that is the process of filling yourself up so you can be a source for another person of that same pure, authentic love. Self-abandonment is what happens when you make someone else responsible for your feelings and responsible for your self-worth. You're essentially looking to someone outside you to take away your uncomfortable feelings and make you feel okay. And we're all prone to this. It starts in childhood. We search for this love and acceptance for something to just be that thing that's going to fill us up. Even if you had very loving parents, you would have experienced some kind of pain around this. We all have, because no human being can provide 100% love for us all of the time. That's why it must be sourced inside. So these are just a couple of things that I've just grown to really cherish and internalize about the marriage partnership and about the sacred marriage within, integrating those forces and alchemizing them inside of myself so that I can show up more powerfully and create containers of safety and safeguards for myself so that I don't fly into states of unconsciousness when I get triggered with a pattern in my husband. I just kind of want to end with one more short little thought. I mean, it's going to sound like maybe cliche to talk about your attitude, or maybe it's just something that's just got so overused that it seems a little trite, talking about your attitude. But I just think it's so powerful and simple, and so I'm just going to read it. It's by Charles Swindoll. He says, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is, we have a choice every day regarding the attitudes we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. I am learning this powerfully with my children, my youngest two children who are now almost 7 and 8, Eli and Emma. All the kids are out of the house. All the other older kids are out of the house now with going to school and living on their own. And so it's just been a little interesting. The last couple of months, we moved into a new home. By quite miraculous circumstances, we ended up in this new home. We're in a really quiet kind of country feel. We don't have anyone living behind us. So we kind of went from like suburban cul-de-sac living with, the freeway 5 minutes away to just this very quiet, contained space. Just if you listen to my episode on my ayahuasca journey, you know that I was literally told in the middle of one of the journeys there in Costa Rica that I needed to move out here. So I received the information with my feminine energy and let it work in me, and then went to my husband and said, I think we need to go look at houses here. And within a week, we had a house, literally a week after I got back from Costa Rica. But it was moving to action. It was taking in the information, being filled with it, trusting it, and then moving to action with the information, which was very limited, that I did have about that inspiration I received. The words that I heard were, Cherie, come home. It literally gives me chills now, because it wasn't just about coming home here. I mean, my parents now live less than 2 miles away from us. It wasn't just about coming home to my marriage or coming to a new home and settling here and buying this home, which we did. It was, Cherie, come home to yourself. So that would be my invitation to you, whether you're married or not, or whether you even have a desire to ever be married or not. It really is just about cultivating that beautiful connection with your own divine soul and your body, staying in your body, becoming fully embodied, becoming a merged soul. That is the invitation, I believe, from the universe, from God, for us to find as we're here on this earth, is to become a merged soul and to alchemize that marriage within, between our masculine and feminine, and between our divine soul and our bodies. I do have a Fix Your Marriage in 40 Days course. You can check that out on my website. I also have a couple of cool things coming up that I'll be discussing that you'll want to be checking out and listening in to find out more on, because I'm going to be teaching women how to do this. How do I merge my soul? How can I find and access that divine and fill myself and open myself to receive the divinity that is me while I'm staying in my body and not rejecting my body? I'll leave you with this word I use a lot, or this phrase I use a lot, as we're kind of wrapping up talking about marriage. Intimacy really has very little to do with another person at the deepest levels. It's into me, see. Intimacy, into me, I see. And we can only ever be intimate with someone else at the level that we are intimate with ourselves. Very little to do with sexuality. It could be that, but it's more about getting down and in with yourself and accessing the expansiveness within you and heeding the voice within you of what wants to be expressed. Have a really great week, and we'll talk to you next time on Women Seeking Wholeness.